going to China for a whole semester. What? So he was in China the whole second semester of his freshman year, which I was like, that's courageous. So came back and was very involved here the remaining years that he was. Went to Jamaica 3 years, like I said, and then decided to spend the year after he graduated doing a year of service with the Passionist Volunteers International, who work down in Jamaica. And Passionist Volunteers is one of numerous programs that if you would like to do long-term service once you graduate, many ways that you can do that. There's the Passionist Volunteers, there's the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, the Benedictines have a program of service. There are multitudes, there are catalogs full of these different programs that you can do. And many, doing that year of service is not necessarily putting your career on hold. For some careers, it's a leg up. They look very favorably for the fact that you have gone outside of your comfort zone, even if they're not religious, that you have gone outside of your comfort zone, learned about another culture, learned about yourself. That can actually help you in the job market. I think it's great because it teaches you about who you are, and it will help deepen your faith by seeing the multitude of reasons, seeing the worldwide nature of the church, seeing how you can be of service, what it means to listen to Jesus. Have you served me in the least of my brothers and sisters? This puts flesh on those words. So, Dan, if you'll take it away.
Real quick, I'm going to bring up a map of Jamaica just to show you, so I can give you kind of an idea of like what we're talking about. So this is Jamaica. Okay, so here's Kingston, that's the capital of Jamaica. This star here is Mandeville, and that's where St. John Bosco Boys' Home is. That's also where the Passionist Volunteers are based right now. So that's where I lived when I was in Jamaica, and that if you go on the Jamaica trip, you will most likely fly into Kingston and go up to Mandeville. Montego Bay, you might have heard of it, is like where all the major resorts are. So if you hear people going on cruises, it's all going to be on this north coast here. And then, if you zoom in over to here, 1, 2, 3, these 3 civil parishes are the Diocese of Mandeville, Jamaica. That is where I worked. And I'm going to talk a lot about Black River. So that's Black River right there. So that's where I did a lot of my work. So you kind of get an idea of the country. Okay. Whoa. What? You're on the wrong tab.
It's on the PowerPoint tab on the bottom. So we go to slide.
Go to present and then right here.
Ah! Okay. I swear I know how to use technology. So, my year as a PVI. So first, what is a PVI? PVI stands for Passionist Volunteer International. Here's our nice little logo on my nice little polo. This is a logo. It was first come up with by Father Lucian Clark, CP. CP is the Community of the Passionists. Passionist religious order was founded by St. Paul of the Cross in Italy in, I believe, the 1700s, and their main charism and focus is to keep the passion of Jesus alive in the hearts and minds of all people. So in 1998, Father Lucian had the idea of forming this group, and in 2003, the first volunteers began in Stony Hill, Jamaica. And Stony Hill is just outside of Kingston, so you saw where Kingston was on the map. It's just outside of Kingston, and they were there until 2010. In 2005, they also had a program start in Honduras, and that lasted until 2011. Due to budget cuts and safety concerns, they left Honduras, and They were invited to come to the Diocese of Mandeville, which is up in the middle rural area of the country, after a Passionist priest became the bishop there, and he wanted to have the Passionist volunteers at his diocese. So that happened in 2010. We have two foundations of our mission: accompaniment and the crucified of today. So accompaniment basically means walking with the people. The main focus of our mission, instead of focusing on, okay, how many people can we feed, how many houses can we build, how many children can we teach, etc., our main focus is forming relationships with the people and walking with the people and experiencing their lives with them. So very often we're reminded by the people who are advisors to the program and our site supervisor, that's all well and good if you do X, Y, and Z, but what relationships are you forming? Are you walking with the people? Because that, above all, even if you just spent a whole day sitting on a porch with someone, talking with them, that's a day well spent as a Passionist volunteer, because that is our main mission, is to spend time with people. And the crucified of today, keeping in mind the passion of our Lord Jesus Christ, just like the Passionist charism, walking with the people who are suffering day to day. We have 4 pillars, and these 4 pillars are very common amongst many service organizations: service, community, simplicity, and spirituality. So we live a life of service, obviously. We lived in a community. I was there with 7 other volunteers. We all lived in one house. We all worked in separate areas, thank goodness, but we all lived in one house. We lived a simple life. We had to take mostly public transportation, and when you couldn't get to public transportation, you walked. We lived on a very simple, small stipend, trying to live as the people we were serving with, to enter more into accompaniment with them by experiencing the simplicity of their lives. And then spirituality, obviously, our program is rooted in the Catholic faith. You are not required to be Catholic to be a Passionist volunteer. We've had many non-Catholics. You work in tandem with the Catholic Church in Jamaica, and so it's a very big part of what we do. So what do we do? These are just examples of the mission sites. We have a very tight connection to St. John Bosco Boys Home, which Father Ed and everyone else was talking about. We do a lot of different work there. We work in infirmaries, which are basically public poorhouses, where people are just kind of abandoned in their wards of the state. And then there's also a nursing home run by the Missionaries of Charity. That's the Mother Teresa sisters that we work with. We work in schools. We started a literacy tutoring program. Like Father Ed was saying, literacy is like the biggest thing you could give to a lot of the children in Jamaica, because you have children getting to take their GSATs, which is their grade 6 assessment test, and they don't know how to read at even a first grade level. And so that's a major problem that we're trying to deal with, especially in the rural areas. We work in clinics. There's a HIV/AIDS support group. We work with children with disabilities through the mustard seed communities, and there's a support group with for mothers with children with disabilities, to offer those mothers support and help with taking care of their kids. We work in churches, so we also run youth groups. We do visits at hospitals, and then a lot of what we do is home visits, just going to people's houses, spending time with them, helping them in whatever way you can. So this is kind of a week in the life of the PVI. You'll see that this is my schedule that I did. Everybody had their own mission sites. Sometimes they overlapped, but generally you had your own sites that you were going to. You're spread out all over the diocese. I had an 1.5 to 2 hour commute one way, pretty much every day I was there. And you do something different every day. So, Sundays, I went to church, and then I would go and do home visits. So this is St. Teresa's Catholic Church in Black River. This is kind of the outside of it. There's the rectory that's attached to it. This is the church. So you can see it's very small, and we had max 35 people on a Sunday. Usually it was about 20 people. Jamaica is about about 10% Catholic country or less. The area where I was working, in the area where the Passionists work, is about 2% Catholic. So there's really not many Catholics. And there are a lot of churches in Jamaica. There's actually more churches in Jamaica per square mile than any other country in the world. And so the Catholic Church is a very small following, but it has a very large social justice presence. So a lot of people know the Catholic Church for the charity work that they do, but they don't necessarily go to a Catholic church. These are some of the people that from my congregation, and this woman right here, her name's Gloria. I helped build the house that we're standing in front of. I also walked her down the aisle at her wedding because they didn't have someone to walk her down the aisle. I was her husband's godfather because he was getting baptized and he needed a godfather. It's basically, as a Passionist volunteer, they're like, oh yeah, we need something done, the volunteers will do it. So they were like, this Jamaican woman walked up to me and they were like, Gloria needs someone to walk her down the aisle. You will be the giveaway father. And I was like, what? Don't worry about it, just do it. And I had been her husband's godfather, but I had never really talked to her. So I was walking her down the aisle, and I never really talked to her, so that was an interesting thing. But I think that's one of the most powerful relationships I've formed, because that was in probably this time of year, November, that I did the wedding. And in the end of the year, New Year's Eve, her mother passed away. And a few days later, her husband passed away, my godson. So I actually helped dig the graves for both of them. I was there for the funerals for both of them. That was really the most challenging thing for me, because I had no idea what to do. I had no idea what to say. I was standing there, I was like, what do you do when someone loses these two integral people to their life? What do you even say? And it was it was that experience that helped me realize that accompaniment really is one of the deepest forms of service. My simply being there, not even saying anything, was a deep service to her and to her family. And so that's really where I first really embraced accompaniment as a model of service. Like, just being there with the person is what matters. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're not there for the person and forming a relationship with them, it's going to be empty. So on Mondays, I worked at St. Elizabeth Meat Processors, which is here's our nice little product, the jerk sausage. And this is the factory here. It's run by solar power. This was founded by a Polish priest who's a missionary in Jamaica, and he wanted to generate income to provide money for children to go to school. They have about 200 kids that they help pay for school fees. They send them with lunches. They pay for their taxi to get to school. They help buy their books. And so all those donations are mostly coming from the United States, and he wanted to generate income on the island and employ local people. Unfortunately, I was there for a year, 1 day a week. We made little to no progress. He has been working on this project for 6 years and made very little progress. So that was a really big lesson in patience, because it's literally kind of like banging your head against the wall, trying to get the Jamaican government to cooperate with you, which is very difficult. But it's incredible, because 17 years ago, this was all just, as Jamaicans would call it, the bush. And now there's this clinic that sees 10,000 people every year. There's a factory. There's a church. And it's all built within the last 15 to 17 years by this one priest. He invited his Polish sisters to come, and sisters can get anything they want done. And so it really just, it's incredible to see in such little time how much progress they've made, but how much progress he still wants to do. So that's an incredible thing. I did that every Monday. Tuesdays, this is Luana, this is Marissa, and I tutored them in literacy. every Tuesday. I'm not an English teacher. I don't know a lot about teaching, but I did my best to teach them, and it was nice to see them progress in their reading abilities, and they really learned to enjoy reading much more by the end of the year, which is really exciting to see. Wednesdays is my day off, so I didn't really have a picture for my day off, but this is like the view from across the street from Black River Church. It was really hard to go to work every day. And this is in the mountains outside of Kingston. We went on a retreat. This is a retreat house called Mount Tabor, run by Missionaries of the Poor. So as you can see, it was a deep, deep sacrifice for me to go and live in Jamaica for a year. On Thursdays, I was at a basic school. Basic school is ages 3 to 5. There's 160 kids at this school, 160 3 to 5-year-olds. Was formerly run by Sister Susan, who is a Kenyan sister, Assumption Sisters of Nairobi. This is the school here. There's actually a new school building that's not in this picture. But I was in charge of teaching music to them and being a human climbing pole, basically. Picture that. So these are a lot of the kids, as you can see, they're adorable and don't really know how to pose for pictures. But now they pose for pictures on this day. So obviously I taught music and I was a human climbing pole. And they called me Uncle Dan because in Jamaica, someone who is like a family friend or like a role model to you, if it's a woman, they'd be called auntie. If it's a male, it's called uncle. So I was Uncle Dan, Uncle Dan. And so like the people who came to Jamaica on the Jamaica trip and came to the school can attest to like, I walked up and like you hear some kid go, Uncle Dan. And then all of a sudden there's this war of children and they all like tackled me. It took me a year to figure out that if I like told them to play follow the leader, I could actually control what they were doing. So that helped a lot, but it took me a long time to figure that out. So Fridays, most of my Fridays were spent with these two wonderful ladies. This is Miss Robbie, and this is Miss Dar. Miss Dar is she is my Jamaican mom, as she likes to say. She actually called me last week and was like, "Hello, how are you doing?" Asking me about the election. And she said, if the election goes bad, will you move back to Jamaica? You can stay in my house. And I told her, yeah, I probably will. So
is that offer staying for any of us?
we can see. So they've probably only been Catholic for the past 10 years. But they have taken it upon themselves to be the hands and feet of our local Catholic Church. They will go and find anybody in the bush. They will just, Miss Dar knows like everybody in Jamaica, which is crazy. Like we'll be driving and she'll be like, "Oh yes, I know them, and that's my uncle. That's my first baby father. That's my second baby father." She's a hoot. But really, they would go and like, if anybody said like, "Hey, I have this person, and they're stuck in their house and they don't have food," they would be like, "Okay," and they would talk to Father Jim, who was our priest, and they'd be like, "We have to go see this person. We have to go see them now." Like. So every Friday we would go out and visit all these people. And here are some of the people that we visited. This is Miss Alberga. This is Mr. Beckford. This is Miss Lewis. And she actually proposed to me the first time we met. So she has Alzheimer's, but she apparently remembered me enough to like every time they went without me, she would ask, "Where's the boy?" Also on Fridays, I would visit the local hospital, and I would visit a police convalescent home. So police officers who were injured in the line of duty, I would visit and lead a devotion for them every Friday morning. And then some Fridays I went to the local jail, and that was probably one of the hardest places. That and the hospital. The hospital's really hard because it's literally a giant hall and a bed. No curtains, no anything. Some people are there for weeks and they have no idea. Like, they haven't talked to a doctor in like 2 weeks and they've been there for 3. A lot of people are stuck in the emergency room for weeks because they don't have beds to put them in. Some people end up dying in the emergency room because they can't get them the attention because they don't have the resources, they don't have the space, they don't have the staff. So that was really hard. And then the jail was really hard too. These are people just waiting for court dates. You know, these aren't people who are like in prison. And it's probably a third of the size of this room, completely black, no lights, no windows, no furniture of any kind. It's just like 15 men in that one room, with maybe a blanket on the floor, maybe just their shirt on the floor. And so we would go in there and we would only really be allowed to be in there for about 10 minutes. And so we would go in and pray with them. But that was really hard to see and experience. And that was like, talking about uncomfortable, that was probably the most uncomfortable I got in Jamaica. Just because you don't know how to react or what to do. But it was incredible to see, you know, some of these men, they were in jail, but they still had their Bibles, and they would be like, pasta, 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 like, let me read the verse, and so they would read it. You know, and even if they would struggle to read it, they were very proud to be able to read the scripture that we were covering for the day. And so that was a really great thing. Saturday, I spent with my youth group, and these are most of my youth. This is Alex, he's 18, he doesn't care. This is Dominique, she's 12 now, and like the sassiest 12-year-old like I've ever met. Like, I don't understand how a person can be so sassy. This is Anthony, Brandon, and oh gosh. Well, his yard name, because Jamaicans have nicknames called yard names, his yard name's Skinny Man. I don't remember his name right now. This is Aldian, this is Brittany, that's CJ, and that's also another Anthony. So it's interesting because these 3 are brothers, and these 2 are their cousins. And there's probably 6 houses on a property about the size of this church, maybe a little bit bigger. And there's 6 little shacks, and there's probably about 30 kids who all live there. And it's all these sisters and all their kids and all their kids. It was an interesting experience just to go see like so many people packed into one place. But like if I ever was bored and needed to be entertained, I knew I could find a bunch of kids to play football with. So that was fun. So that was a week. This is community. This is my community. I don't need to go through their names. But your community is really important. I mean, we live with them. I killed chickens with them. This is the Bosco Butcher Shop, and we killed chickens with the Bosco boys. It's a huge assembly line, and we went through 3,000 chickens in the morning. We woke up at 5 a.m. to start, and we were finished by 9 or 10, like 3,000 chickens. We dressed up as an awkward family photo for Halloween. We celebrate Christmas together. They're the people, we serve dinners together, you know, we eat dinners together. This is us climbing the tallest peak in Jamaica, Blue Mountain. They're the people you interact with every single day, and they're gonna drive you crazy. But at the end of the day, they're also the only people who understand what you're going through. Because you can talk to people back home about like, this is what I'm doing in my mission site, and this is what happened. But people at home aren't gonna understand the culture. They're not gonna understand the work you do, and they won't know who you're talking about necessarily. But your community, they understand the culture, they understand the kind of work you do, and often we would go and visit each other's mission sites so you would know who they were talking about, and form relationships with people from their mission sites. And so it was really one of the most challenging things, but also one of the most amazing parts of my year of service. Because I only really knew one of these people before going to Jamaica. One of them actually went to grade school with me, and we hadn't seen each other in 10 years, and all of a sudden we're in Jamaica together. Really, really random. But like, even then there's a huge difference in time, so like I really didn't know these people. And it's like an arranged marriage, a lot of people compare it to, because you're stuck with these people. That's it, like you can't do anything about it. But you learn to grow and work with each other and really be intentional about your relationships, because just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean you can necessarily take it off on your roommates. And so you have to be very intentional about like knowing who your roommates are, knowing how they process things, and knowing, hey, they maybe need space, or hey, maybe they need someone to talk to. So it's like a huge balancing act. I wish I could say I got really good at it, but I didn't. I still could use a lot of more work, but it was really a great experience. Just one last thing, there are people for our program called our support group, and these are this is Mr. and Mrs. Mupan. Mr. Mupan actually passed away this past year, but they are like two of the biggest benefactors of our program in Jamaica, but also biggest supporters of our program. This hot sauce bottle is Piaskowski, the man who owns Piaskowski, who is like probably one of the richest people in Jamaica by far, but also one of the most generous people in Jamaica. He's also on our support staff. And these are Jamaicans who know the culture, know the system, have connections politically and in the business world that can get you help if you needed help. As volunteers, we were never allowed to like fundraise. Like we weren't allowed to give our own money to people. It's like it was a rule that you're not supposed to go out and be handing out money to people and saying like, yes, this is my money, I'm giving it to you. Because the goal of the program was to connect the people we were working with resources, mostly in Jamaica, but also you could fundraise money from home and then donate it to those people. But you have to like make sure that they know that it's from home, because it's a begging culture. So if people see you handing out a lot of things, they're gonna just ask. And it's not, I think a lot of people will see it as rude in some senses, but a Jamaican would just see it as like, I'm gonna ask, and if you say no, I won't be upset, but I'm gonna ask. So they're not gonna think like, oh, I don't know if I should ask this person. They'll just straight up like ask you like, give me your money, like give me your wallet, like I want that watch, I want those sunglasses. The people who've gone to Bosco know this because the boys do it all the time. But again, the people on the support team are able to connect you with resources and with donations that you can give to the people in your mission sites. And they're, really great resources to have. This is when we first came to Jamaica. This is Father Lucian, who I was talking about. This is Sister Maureen. She is the sister of St. Joseph, and she is our site supervisor. So she is your go-to person in Jamaica, because Father Lucian lives in New York. And so she is your go-to person with whatever you need, in charge of the program, keeps us in line. And actually, one of my roommates, Ross, is now, Father Lucian is taking a step back from his leadership role, so Ross is now the director of operations for the program. So if any of you apply, Ross will be your boss. And I texted him earlier and he said, make sure you tell them this is the PBI email address and like ask if anybody wants to be a PBI. So if you have any questions about being a PBI or you want information about it, just come talk to me afterwards. That's it.
All right. Next week, obviously, we don't have Moscow night because it'll be Thanksgiving.